Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I am reviewing the book Zayd by Professor David Powers. This book to me is an important book because it continues the existence of Orientalist arguments and is an important book to understand the type of discussions that are often created externally upon Islam and the types of critiques that are there on Islamic history and upon the normative tradition of Islamic history as well. Zayd was the adopted son of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Powers reconstructs the history and the story of Zayd to argue a number of points. The main one of which is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was not really the final prophet. Maybe there were prophets to come after him, and in order to allow for the argument of a rightful successorship of either Banu Umayyah or Banu Abbas or the Shi'i community, Zayd is a fictitious character created in order to be able to stem the idea of what came after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What do we mean by this? What is he trying to argue and why? Zayd, according to Powers, could be a fictitious character, and really he is modeled on certain biblical characters that the Muslims read in the Bible and then created and superimposed onto history in order to say that there was a person named by Zayd. The argument goes that a prophet should have children and an inheritor. Why? Because the lineage of prophethood continues. Whereas in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the prophet Khatamin Nabiyyin. He is the seal of the prophets. Was this verse added later on in the Quran? Was Zayd a means to be able to allow people to justify their khilafat or their own lineage and authority by virtue of being connected to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Powers argues that all of these things are creations post-prophethood, and states that Zayd was a fictitious character that was attributed to the Prophet in a way that allowed the prophetic lineage to stop through Zayd by virtue of him being not a direct son but an adopted son. And therefore, by virtue of him being the adopted son and there not being a direct lineage to the Prophet to continue thereafter, Banu Abbas could legitimately claim to be the Khulafa afterwards because they could state, Prophet had no one after him, therefore we are the family of the Prophet, therefore we can claim authority in Islam. In order to claim this authority, they needed to ensure that no one came after the Prophet legitimately to take over prophethood or leadership from the posterity of the Prophet. So how do we stop that from happening? We create a character from within the family and claim that he can be from within the family but never has divine authority. So what do? We have a fictitious adopted son, therefore we can prove that authority should stay within the family because he had a son, but because he was adopted, prophethood and lineage could not continue on through him. But thereafter, we being Banu Abbas are able to claim authority remains within the family lineage. All of this had to be done in a great plot and a great plan. How did they do it? They looked into the Bible and saw that there were a number of different people. There was Ishmael, there was Jacob, there was all these different people. And what we can do is take little snippets of their arguments and their greatnesses and put them all into one fictitious character named Zayd, the adopted son of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Zayd, therefore, in his history was what? To be known as the adopted son, but never to be attributed directly to the Prophet. As you know, when it comes to adoption in Islam, previously people might say, he is my son, he takes on my name, he inherits from me directly. In Islam, the verse said, no, Zayd is your adopted son. Muhammad is not the father of any of your people. Rather, he is Khatam al-Nabiyyin. So the entirety of this verse and the entirety of the Zayd character is a fictitious character in order to allow a person to exist with great attributes, for there to be a person within the family unit, but not a person who's going to take over prophethood after him, but therefore, because we are from the family, we get to take over authority and khilafat thereafter. As you can see, Powers has created a very elaborate historical reconstruction. And I would argue that it has many, many flaws in it. Of course, from the traditional Islamic perspective, Zayd exists. There is much early historic narrative about Zayd. Powers goes into various different texts to argue that Zayd was either not real, created, and superimposed. And I think the importance of the debate is less around Zayd in particular, but more to be able to appreciate the way in which Orientalism continues until today, and the way in which this revisionism of Islam and the way in which these external arguments are placed upon Islam about its own history and legitimacy, the collection of ahadith, the concept of tafasir, authority in Islam, all of these things are questioned, and rightly so. They have a right to be questioned. But you can see the trend within Orientalism that existed historically and the way in which it manifests itself today. Previously, for example, we'd often see the attack on the legitimacy of the Quran. We'd often see the attack on the legitimacy of oral tradition within ahadith. Today, however, the Orientalist shift has come about to be able to attack certain personalities and the historicity around them, such as Zayd. Therefore, I would recommend this book to certain type of people, to specifically academics, specifically researchers in Islam, students of Islam that would be allowing themselves to see the way in which history is reconstructed and arguments are put towards the history of Islam, and the way in which early sources such as the Maghazi have been written and what they say and why they have ended up being written the way in which they have written. Inshallah, I think this book is very good for students of Islam, and academics and researchers, and I hope that you will enjoy the book as much as I have enjoyed the book, inshallah.